I'm Allison Mitchell, 34 today, standing in front of my bathroom mirror in the designer dress I saved 6 months to buy. The emerald fabric hugs my curves perfectly, a small victory against my sister Stephanie's constant reminders that I've let myself go. Tonight's my birthday dinner at Bellini's, the fanciest restaurant in town, and for once, I feel beautiful. If only Stephanie's 15-year-old daughter Bailey wasn't coming. That girl has her mother's gift for making me feel 2 inches tall. Still, as I grab my purse and keys, I'm determined nothing will ruin tonight. I deserve this celebration. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Trust me, after what happens next, you'll want to stick around. Growing up in Ridgemont, Ohio wasn't easy for either of us. Dad left when I was 7 and Stephanie was 10, leaving Mom to work double shifts at the diner. While other kids got new clothes for school, we wore hand-me-downs from church donations. Mom did her best, but there was never enough money, never enough time, never enough attention to go around. Maybe that's why Stephanie and I took such different paths. I buried myself in books, determined to escape our small town through education. Stephanie chose a different route. By 18, she perfected the art of being beautiful and interesting to wealthy men. She dropped out of community college when she met Greg Thompson, heir to his family's construction business. They were married 3 months later. At 21, while I was working 2 jobs to put myself through state college, Stephanie was living in a McMansion in the suburbs, driving a Mercedes, and expecting Bailey. When I'd visit during breaks, Stephanie would parade me around her enormous kitchen, pointing out appliances that cost more than my semester's tuition. "You should really try dating someone with potential, Allie," she'd say, examining my drugstore nail polish with thinly veiled disgust. "College is fine, but security is better." Over the years, her comments became more refined but no less cutting. When I landed my first marketing job at a small agency, she asked if it came with actual benefits or just experience. When I was promoted to manager, she wondered aloud if I'd have any time left to find a husband. Every achievement in my life was minimized, every choice questioned. Bailey grew up watching this dynamic, absorbing her mother's attitudes like a sponge. By age 10, she was rolling her eyes whenever I spoke. By 12, she was making comments about my apartment being cozy, her tone making it clear she meant small. Now at 15, Bailey had mastered her mother's backhanded compliments. "That's such a cute outfit, Aunt Allison, it's brave how you don't follow trends." The worst part was how Stephanie parented her. Bailey wanted for nothing and was rarely told no. When she was rude, Stephanie would laugh it off as teenage sass or Bailey just being Bailey. At family gatherings, Bailey would ignore everyone in favor of her phone, speaking only to make sarcastic comments or complain about the food. Greg occasionally attempted discipline, but Stephanie would undermine him, claiming he was overreacting or picking on their daughter. Despite everything, I kept trying. Every birthday, every holiday, every family dinner was another opportunity to hope things would be different. Last Christmas had actually given me reason for optimism. Stephanie had seemed genuinely interested in my recent promotion to senior marketing director. She'd asked questions about my clients and even defended my career choice when our aunt made a comment about my biological clock. For the first time in years, I felt seen by my sister. So when I planned my birthday dinner, I included Stephanie, Greg, and Bailey without hesitation. Maybe we were finally turning a corner in our relationship. Maybe, at 34 and 47, we were finally growing up. As I drove to Bellini's that evening, I rehearsed responses to potential barbs from Stephanie. I wouldn't let her comments about my single status sting. I wouldn't react if she compared my career to Greg's. I was determined to maintain my dignity and enjoy my birthday regardless of what she said or did. After all, my closest friends would be there too. Melissa, Jared, and Kim had promised to run interference if necessary. The restaurant came into view, its elegant facade lit by tasteful spotlights. I pulled into the parking lot, took a deep breath, and checked my reflection one last time. The emerald dress still looked perfect. My makeup was flawless. Tonight would be different. Tonight would be good. I had no idea how wrong I was. Bellini's was the crown jewel of our city's dining scene. Crystal chandeliers hung from coffered ceilings, and genuine oil paintings adorned walls covered in silk damask. The maitre d' greeted me by name, a small extravagance I'd arranged when making the reservation, and led me to a round table in a cozy alcove with a perfect view of the restaurant's central fountain. This dinner had required serious financial planning on my part. 3 months of bringing lunch from home instead of buying it. No new books or clothes. Skipping my usual weekend coffee shop writing sessions. But standing in that beautiful space, knowing I'd earned every inch of this experience through my own hard work, made the sacrifices worthwhile. Melissa arrived first, her warm smile instantly putting me at ease. She hugged me tightly, pressing a beautifully wrapped package into my hands. "Happy birthday, Allie. You look absolutely stunning," she said, stepping back to admire my dress. "Seriously, that color was made for you." Jared and Kim arrived moments later, both carrying gift bags and wearing genuine smiles. These three had been my support system through job changes, bad breakups, and family drama. They knew the full Stephanie situation and had volunteered as emotional bodyguards for the evening. To the birthday queen, Jared said, raising an imaginary glass. "May this year bring you everything you deserve, which is only the best." For 20 blissful minutes, we chatted about everything and nothing: Kim's new puppy, Jared's disaster date the previous weekend, Melissa's upcoming vacation. I felt myself truly relaxing, the knot of anxiety about Stephanie's arrival temporarily forgotten. Then I heard her laugh. Loud and practiced, from the restaurant entrance. Stephanie swept in like a minor celebrity, her designer handbag alone worth more than my entire outfit. Greg followed, handsome in an understated way, with Bailey trailing behind, her attention focused entirely on her phone. Stephanie air-kissed my cheeks, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume. "Happy birthday, little sister. You clean up nice," she said, her eyes quickly scanning my dress. "Is that new? The color's a bit bold for your complexion, but it's fun." And there it was, the compliment wrapped around an insult like bitter medicine inside candy. I forced a smile. "Thanks, Steph. I'm glad you could all make it." Bailey didn't look up from her phone, not even when Greg gently nudged her. "Bailey, say hello to your aunt. It's her birthday." "Hi," Bailey mumbled, still scrolling. Stephanie laughed as she settled into her chair. "You know teenagers. Their phones are practically surgically attached." "Don't take it personally, Allie." The waiter appeared to take drink orders. My friends each requested modest selections, house wines, a craft beer for Jared. Stephanie ordered a $50 glass of champagne for herself and Greg. When it came to Bailey, Stephanie ordered her a virgin daiquiri with extra fruit garnish, despite the menu offering several non-alcoholic options specifically for teens. "She deserves something special too," Stephanie explained to the table, though no one had questioned her. "Just because she's young doesn't mean she should miss out on the luxury experience." As we looked at the food menus, Stephanie reached into an expensive shopping bag and pulled out a medium-sized box wrapped in designer paper. "Open mine first," she insisted, pushing it toward me. I saw it and immediately thought of you. Inside was a planner from a high-end brand, complete with matching pen and notepad. It was beautiful, but also oddly impersonal. "Something you'd give a casual colleague, not a sister." "I know how you love to stay organized with your busy little career," Stephanie said, her tone suggesting my senior marketing director position was a cute hobby rather than the culmination of years of hard work. "Plus, it's got a section for personal goals. Maybe this will be the year you focus on finding someone special." Before I could respond, Melissa jumped in, handing me her gift. "Here, open mine next." Her present, a first edition of my favorite novel that she'd hunted down through specialty bookstores, brought genuine tears to my eyes. Kim and Jared's gifts were equally thoughtful, a spa gift certificate from Kim and concert tickets from Jared to an artist I loved. Stephanie's smile tightened slightly. Well, those are certainly creative gifts. Very you, Allie. The food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. I'd ordered the salmon, treating myself to a dish I rarely splurged on. Stephanie made a show of cutting a tiny piece of her steak, commenting on how she really shouldn't, but it's a special occasion. Bailey, having ordered the most expensive pasta dish on the menu, immediately declared it gross and pushed it away, returning to her phone. Bailey, honey, you need to eat something, Greg said quietly. I'm not hungry, she snapped. This place is boring anyway. Stephanie patted her hand. You can have whatever you want when we get home, sweetie. The conversation turned to my recent promotion, with Melissa enthusiastically asking about my new responsibilities. It's been exciting, I admitted. I'm leading our biggest accounts now, and I've been put in charge of hiring for the department. The pay increase doesn't hurt either. That's wonderful. Kim said. They obviously recognize your talent. Well, Stephanie cut in, swirling her champagne, that's great for a company that size, I suppose. Speaking of business success, Greg just acquired 3 new development properties downtown. The mayor personally called to thank him for his investment in the city's future. Greg looked uncomfortable. It's really just a standard expansion, Steph. Don't be modest, honey. His company is projecting 8-figure profits this quarter alone, she continued, turning to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It must be nice having such a straightforward career path, Allie. So much less pressure. I felt my cheeks burning but maintained my smile. Just get through dinner, I told myself. Don't let her ruin your birthday. Bailey, who had been ignoring the conversation entirely, suddenly looked up from her phone. Mom, I need the new Stella McCartney bag for Isabel's party. Everyone's getting one. We'll talk about it tomorrow, sweetie, Stephanie replied. But I need it by Friday, Bailey insisted, her voice rising. Isabel will think I'm poor or something if I show up with my old bag. The irony of this statement in front of me, who had saved for months to afford one special dress, wasn't lost on anyone at the table. Jared caught my eye, raising an eyebrow slightly. I gave him a small smile in return, silently communicating that I was okay. Just then, the waiter approached with a small cake, a single candle flickering on top. My friends began to sing Happy Birthday, with Greg joining in enthusiastically. Stephanie sang with a practiced smile, while Bailey didn't even look up from her phone. As the cake was placed before me, I felt a moment of genuine happiness. Despite Stephanie's digs and Bailey's rudeness, I was surrounded by people who cared about me. I closed my eyes, made a quick wish for continued strength, and leaned forward to blow out the candle. That's when everything changed. Make a wish. Melissa cheered as I leaned toward the candle. In that moment, several things happened simultaneously. I drew in a breath to blow out the candle. The waiter stepped back from the table. And Bailey, apparently annoyed by the attention focused on me, made a dramatic show of reaching for her bright red fruit punch. What happened next wasn't an accident. I know this with absolute certainty because of the calculated look in Bailey's eyes, a look I recognized from years of similar moments with Stephanie. Bailey's arm moved with deliberate precision, knocking her glass directly toward me. The red liquid arced through the air like it was happening in slow motion. Cold punch splashed across my chest and lap, immediately soaking into the emerald fabric of my dress. The shock of it made me gasp, both from the sudden coldness and the instant realization that my dress was ruined. Red liquid spread across the bodice, turning the beautiful green fabric into a murky, soiled mess. For a split second, silence fell over the table. Then Bailey spoke, her voice carrying clearly in the suddenly quiet restaurant. Now you look as cheap as you really are. I froze, the words hitting harder than the actual drink. The venom in her tone was unmistakable. This wasn't teenage impulsiveness. This was calculated cruelty. Melissa's hand flew to her mouth. Jared muttered something that sounded like what the hell? Kim immediately grabbed her napkin and tried to blot my dress, though we both knew it was futile. Greg broke the silence first. Bailey. Apologize right now. Bailey rolled her eyes, not a hint of remorse on her face. It was an accident. God. It certainly was not, Greg insisted, his face reddening. I saw what you did. Stephanie, however, was already moving to minimize the situation. Oh, these things happen. Bailey, honey, that wasn't very careful of you. Her tone carried all the severity of someone commenting on spilled milk, not a deliberately cruel act on my birthday. I'm sure it'll come out, Stephanie continued, barely glancing at my ruined dress. Soda water and lemon, that's what the housekeepers always use at our place. I sat there, punch dripping from the fabric onto my legs, struggling to process what had just happened. The humiliation burned through me, made worse by Stephanie's casual dismissal. Are you okay? Kim whispered, still futilely dabbing at my dress. I wasn't okay. The dress I'd saved for months to buy was destroyed. My birthday dinner was ruined. And my 15-year-old niece had just publicly declared me cheap while my own sister barely reacted. I need a minute, I managed to say, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. I stood up, punch dripping onto my shoes, and walked as steadily as I could toward the restroom. I could feel eyes on me from other tables, hear the murmurs of other diners witnessing my humiliation. By some miracle, I made it through the restroom door before the tears started falling. Alone in a stall, I finally let myself break down. Sobs shook my body as I grabbed toilet paper to blot up my dress, red punch staining the tissue. The beautiful emerald fabric was ruined beyond repair, no dry cleaner would be able to remove such a massive stain. But it wasn't really about the dress. It was about years of subtle and not-so-subtle put-downs. It was about Stephanie's constant minimizing of my achievements. It was about watching her daughter turn into a mirror image of her worst traits, that same calculating cruelty now directed at me on my birthday. Now you look as cheap as you really are. The words replayed in my mind. Is that really what they thought of me? That despite my education, my career, my hard work, I was just cheap? Less than? Not worthy of basic respect? A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. Allie? It's Melissa. Can I come in? I unlocked the stall door, my face tear-streaked and my dress a disaster. Melissa immediately pulled me into a hug, not caring that the punch would stain her own clothes. That little monster, she whispered fiercely. And Stephanie barely said a word. She never does, I said, my voice breaking. Nothing Bailey does is ever really wrong in her eyes. And anything I achieve is never really right. Pulling back, Melissa looked me straight in the eyes. Listen to me. You are successful, intelligent, and kind, all on your own merit. That girl is a product of terrible parenting, and Stephanie is. She paused, searching for words. Stephanie is jealous of you, Allie. She always has been. I blinked in surprise. Jealous? Of me? She has everything, the house, the money, the family. She has things, Melissa corrected. You have earned everything in your life. There's a difference, and deep down, she knows it. As Melissa helped me clean up as best we could, I found myself thinking about all the times I'd swallowed my feelings for the sake of family peace. All the times I'd let Stephanie's comments slide, let Bailey's rudeness go unchallenged. All in the name of maintaining a relationship that, if I was honest with myself, caused me more pain than joy. Looking at my reflection in the mirror, makeup smeared, dress stained, eyes red from crying, something shifted inside me. I straightened my shoulders and wiped the last tears from my face. I'm done, I said quietly. Done with the dinner? I don't blame you. We can go somewhere else, Melissa suggested. No. I'm done pretending this is okay. I'm done letting them treat me like this. Melissa's expression changed from sympathy to something like pride. About damn time. Together, we walked back toward the table, the remains of my birthday dinner, and the family members who needed to hear some long overdue truths. The walk back to the table seemed to take forever. Every step was a battle between the instinct to flee and the newfound determination to stand my ground. My dress was still wet, the stain setting deeper with each passing minute, just like the resentment I'd been burying for years. As I approached, I saw Greg speaking sternly to Bailey, whose sullen expression showed zero remorse. Stephanie was chatting with Jared and Kim as if nothing had happened, gesturing with her champagne glass while they both sat in uncomfortable silence. When she saw me, she gave a small, dismissive wave. "There you are. I was just telling your friends about our trip to Aspen last winter." "Bailey, move your purse so Allie can sit down." Bailey grudgingly moved her designer bag, not even looking up at me. "I ordered you another glass of wine," Stephanie continued breezily. "You looked like you could use it." That simple comment, the implication that I should just drink away the humiliation and carry on, sent me back to countless childhood moments. Stephanie accidentally spilling nail polish on my science project the night before it was due. Stephanie forgetting to give me a phone message about a job interview. Stephanie just teasing when she told my first serious boyfriend about my childhood bedwetting problem. Always followed by, "Don't be so sensitive, Allie." As I stood there, dripping punch onto the expensive carpet, a memory surfaced with startling clarity. I was 16, getting ready for my first real date. I'd saved up to buy a simple blue dress from the mall, nothing fancy, but I felt pretty in it. Stephanie, home from college for the weekend, had looked me up and down and said, "Blue is really more for people with actual curves, but it's cute that you're trying." I'd changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater, my confidence completely shattered. 20 years later, and here I was again. Another special occasion, another outfit ruined, another blow to my self-worth. Except this time, it wasn't just Stephanie. She'd passed the torch to Bailey, teaching her that cruelty was acceptable, even admirable. "Allie? Hello?" "Your wine," Stephanie prompted, pointing to a fresh glass on the table. Melissa squeezed my arm gently, a silent show of support. I took a deep breath, pulled out my chair, and sat down, uncomfortably aware of my wet dress clinging to my legs. "I don't want wine, Stephanie," I said quietly. "What I want is for Bailey to apologize. Sincerely." Stephanie laughed lightly. "Oh, she already did while you were in the bathroom." "Right, Bailey?" Bailey didn't even look up from her phone. "Whatever. Sorry." The dismissive tone, the lack of eye contact, the complete absence of remorse, it was the final straw. Years of diminishment crystallized into a single moment of clarity. This would never stop unless I made it stop. Greg cleared his throat. "Bailey, that's not a real apology. Put your phone down and look at your aunt." "It's fine," Stephanie interrupted. "Allie knows she didn't mean anything by it. Let's just enjoy the rest of dinner, shall we? The dress will clean up, and we can all laugh about this later." "No," I said, my voice stronger now. "No, we won't laugh about this later." The table fell silent. Even Bailey looked up, perhaps sensing the shift in energy. "This isn't funny. It wasn't an accident. And I'm not going to pretend it was just to make everyone comfortable," I continued, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. "I'm done doing that." "Doing what?" Stephanie asked, her smile fixed but her eyes narrowing slightly. "Diminishing myself to make you feel better," I replied. "Accepting disrespect to keep the peace. Pretending that your behavior, and now Bailey's, doesn't hurt me." The weight of unspoken truths hung in the air between us. For a moment, I saw something flash across Stephanie's face, perhaps recognition, perhaps fear. Then her expression hardened. "You're overreacting. It was just a spilled drink." "No," I said firmly. "It was a deliberate act meant to humiliate me. And your response, or lack thereof, tells me everything I need to know about how much you respect me." Bailey shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her phone temporarily forgotten. Greg looked at me with something like respect in his eyes, while my friends watched silently, letting me find my voice. "I've spent years trying to earn your approval, Stephanie. Years accepting your backhanded compliments and dismissal of my achievements. I've watched you teach Bailey that it's okay to treat people, to treat me, like we're beneath you. The emotions I'd been suppressing for decades rose to the surface, not in tears this time, but in clear-eyed certainty. I deserve better than this. Not because of my job title or my address or what I'm wearing. Because I'm a human being. Because I'm your sister. For the first time in my adult life, I felt the power of speaking my truth without apology. The red stain spreading across my dress no longer felt like a mark of shame, it was battle armor, evidence of what I'd endured and survived. As I looked around the table, at Stephanie's frozen smile, at Bailey's widening eyes, at my friends' proud expressions, I realized that no matter what happened next, I had already won. I had reclaimed my voice. And I was never going back to silence. The restaurant seemed to have gone quiet around us, though logically I knew other diners were still eating, talking, living their normal lives. In our alcove, however, time stood suspended in the aftermath of my words. Stephanie recovered first, her laugh tinkling like broken glass. My goodness, Allie. It's just a dress. There's no need for such dramatics on your birthday. She turned to the table at large. She's always been sensitive. Even as a little girl, the smallest things would set her off. There it was again, the minimizing, the rewriting of reality, the subtle suggestion that I was irrational rather than justifiably hurt. This isn't about the dress, I said calmly. This is about respect. Bailey deliberately humiliated me, and you're acting like I should just accept it. Accidents happen, Stephanie insisted, though less confidently. It wasn't an accident, Greg interjected, surprising everyone at the table. I was watching. Bailey did it on purpose, and what she said afterward was completely unacceptable. Stephanie turned to him, eyes flashing. Whose side are you on? The side of basic human decency, he replied firmly. Bailey needs to give Allison a real apology. Bailey slouched further in her chair, a sullen expression on her face. I already said sorry. No, I said, looking directly at her. You said whatever and sorry while looking at your phone. That's not an apology. That's a dismissal. See what I mean? Stephanie cut in. So sensitive. Bailey's 15, Allie. She's a teenager. They say things without thinking. That's not an excuse, Melissa spoke up. 15 is old enough to know right from wrong. Stephanie's eyes narrowed at the intervention. I don't recall asking for parenting advice from someone without children. And I don't recall asking to be treated like garbage on my birthday, I replied, yet here we are. The directness of my response seemed to shock Stephanie. She was used to me backing down, to accepting her framing of events. Her mouth opened and closed without words coming out. I turned to Bailey, who was now staring at the table, avoiding everyone's eyes. Bailey, I want to ask you something, and I'd appreciate an honest answer. Why did you do it? Why pour your drink on me and say what you did? The table fell silent. Even Stephanie didn't interrupt. After a long moment, Bailey mumbled something inaudible. I can't hear you, I said, not unkindly. I said, Mom always says you think you're better than us because you went to college and got everything yourself. Bailey's voice was barely above a whisper, but in the quiet alcove, every word was clear. Greg's head snapped toward Stephanie. What? Stephanie's face flushed crimson. I never said that. Bailey, stop making things up. Yes, you did, Bailey insisted, suddenly animated. You said Aunt Allison acts superior because she didn't get help from anyone, and that she judges us for having money. You said it last week when we were shopping for her birthday present. The revelation hung in the air like smoke. So this was the story Stephanie had been telling, that my independence was actually arrogance, that my pride in my achievements was judgment of her choices. Is that true, Steph? I asked quietly. Is that what you really think of me? Of course not, she scoffed, though her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Bailey's exaggerating. You know how teenagers are. Actually, I do know how teenagers are, I said. They repeat what they hear at home. They absorb the attitudes of the adults around them. Bailey didn't come up with "now you look as cheap as you really are" out of nowhere. Stephanie's face hardened. So now I'm a terrible mother? Is that what you're saying? I'm saying that children learn what they live, I replied. And Bailey has learned that it's acceptable to be cruel to me because that's what she's observed. Greg placed a hand on Stephanie's arm. Steph, we need to address this. What Bailey did was wrong, and there need to be consequences. Don't you dare undermine me in public, Stephanie hissed at him. This is between me and my sister. No, I said firmly. This involves everyone at this table. Bailey hurt me, intentionally, and you're enabling her behavior instead of correcting it. That affects me, it affects Greg, and most importantly, it affects Bailey's development as a person. I turned my attention back to Bailey, whose sullen expression had given way to something more complex, perhaps the first stirrings of shame. Bailey, I want you to know something. I have never judged your family for having money. I've been proud of your dad's success and grateful that your mom has financial security. What I've struggled with is the way I've been treated. Like my choices and achievements are somehow less valuable because they're different. Bailey glanced up briefly before returning her gaze to the table. When you poured that drink on me and said what you did, you weren't just ruining my dress. You were sending a message that I don't deserve respect. Is that really how you want to treat people? For the first time that evening, Bailey seemed genuinely uncomfortable. I didn't think about it like that. Of course you didn't, Stephanie interrupted. Because that's not what happened. Allie's turning this into a bigger deal than it is. Stop it, Stephanie, Greg said sharply. This is exactly the problem. You're teaching Bailey that actions don't have consequences as long as you can dismiss other people's feelings. Stephanie's face reddened further. I don't have to sit here and be attacked by my own family on what's supposed to be a celebration. She grabbed her purse and stood up. Bailey, we're leaving. Bailey hesitated, looking between her parents. Sit down, Stephanie, Greg said, his voice calm but firm. Running away doesn't solve anything. I'm not running away, she snapped. I'm removing myself and my daughter from a toxic situation. The only toxicity here is the behavior you're modeling, I said quietly. And if you leave now, without addressing what happened, you're proving my point. Something in my tone must have reached her because Stephanie slowly sank back into her chair, though her posture remained rigid. Fine. What do you want? A formal apology? A new dress? What will make this dramatic scene end so we can all go home? Her words stung, but I refused to be derailed. What I want is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement that what happened wasn't okay. Acknowledgement that our relationship has been damaged by years of dismissal and disrespect. And most importantly, acknowledgement that things need to change. Stephanie stared at me, her expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought I glimpsed vulnerability beneath her perfect facade, a flicker of the sister I used to know before status and appearances became her religion. I can't do this right now, she finally said, her voice slightly less certain. This is too much. That's your choice, I replied. But I need you to understand something. Going forward, I won't accept being treated as less than. Not by you, not by Bailey, not by anyone. I've spent too many years diminishing myself to keep the peace, and I'm done. Greg nodded slowly. That's more than fair, Allison. He turned to Bailey. And you are going to give your aunt a genuine apology, right now. Bailey looked up, her expression a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. Then, to my surprise, her shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, Aunt Allison, she said, actually meeting my eyes this time. What I did was mean, and I shouldn't have done it. The apology wasn't perfect, but the hint of genuine remorse in her voice suggested that perhaps, beneath the attitude and entitlement, there was hope for change. Thank you, Bailey, I said sincerely. I appreciate that. Stephanie stood up again, this time more slowly. I think we should go. Clearly this dinner is over. She looked at me, her expression complex. I'll call you tomorrow. As they gathered their things, Greg lingered behind. I'm truly sorry about your birthday, Allison. And your dress. I'll make sure there are real consequences for Bailey's behavior. He hesitated, then added, and I think Stephanie and I need to have a serious conversation about some things. After they left, the tension at the table visibly dissipated. Jared let out a low whistle. Well, he said, that was the most honest family dinner I've ever witnessed. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. Not exactly the birthday celebration I had in mind. Melissa reached over and squeezed my hand. Maybe not. But I have a feeling it might be the most important one of your life. Looking down at my stained dress, the physical evidence of this turning point, I realized she was right. After Stephanie, Greg, and Bailey left, the four of us remained at the table, the atmosphere shifting from tension to a strange kind of relief. I looked down at my ruined dress, the red stain now setting into a permanent reminder of the evening. I can't believe I just did that, I said, a slightly hysterical laugh escaping me. 34 years of keeping the peace, and I pick my birthday dinner at Bellini's to finally snap. You didn't snap, Kim corrected, raising her wine glass in a toast. You stood up for yourself. There's a world of difference. To Allison, Jared said, raising his glass. Who just gave herself the best birthday gift possible, self-respect. I should have done it years ago, I admitted, accepting a clean napkin from our waiter, who had tactfully kept his distance during the confrontation. All this time, I thought keeping quiet was the mature thing to do. The kind thing. That's how it works with family dynamics like yours, Melissa said. The reasonable person gets stuck accommodating the unreasonable one because they're the only one capable of compromise. The observation hit home. How many times had I swallowed my feelings because I knew Stephanie wouldn't, or couldn't, do the same? How many holidays and family gatherings had I endured her cutting remarks because confronting her would have ruined the day? I remember when I got that promotion to marketing manager, I said, memories suddenly surfacing. The one that came with the office on the corner? I was so excited to tell Stephanie. I called her right away, and do you know what she said? My friends shook their heads. She said, that's nice, but I wouldn't get too comfortable. Those middle management positions are always the first to go in budget cuts. Then she immediately started talking about Greg's new boat. God, what a piece of work, Jared muttered. The thing is, her comment affected me. I spent the first 3 months in that job waiting for the other shoe to drop instead of enjoying my success. She has this way of planting these seeds of doubt. Kim nodded. And it's clearly a pattern she's established with Bailey too. That "now you look as cheap as you really are" comment didn't come from nowhere. The memory of Bailey's words still stung, but now I could see them for what they were, a reflection of Stephanie's insecurities, not a truth about me. You know what's sad? I said, absently tracing the edge of the stain on my dress. I don't think Stephanie is happy. All the money, the house, the status, I don't think any of it has made her happy. That's probably why your success bothers her so much, Melissa suggested. You've built a life on your own terms. That's threatening to someone who's defined themselves by external markers of success. As we continued talking, dissecting years of complex family dynamics, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Greg. Allison, I want to apologize again for tonight. What Bailey did was inexcusable, and I've taken away her phone and social privileges for the next month. Stephanie and I had a long talk on the way home. There are some issues we need to address. I hope you know I've always respected your independence and accomplishments. Happy birthday, despite everything. Greg. I showed the message to my friends. At least one of them gets it, Jared said. Greg's always been decent, I acknowledged. He just tends to let Stephanie run the show. A second text came through, this one from Stephanie. I think you overreacted tonight, but I'm sorry your dress got ruined. I can recommend my dry cleaner if you want to try saving it. We can talk when things calm down. S. No real acknowledgement, no genuine apology, just the same old Stephanie, trying to minimize what happened and move on without addressing the real issues. Some things never change, I sighed, showing them the second message. But you have, Melissa pointed out. And that's what matters. She was right. Something fundamental had shifted inside me tonight. The weight of constantly seeking Stephanie's approval, of making myself smaller to avoid her criticism, had lifted. I felt lighter, despite the sticky, stained dress and the emotional exhaustion. So what happens now? Kim asked gently. With you and Stephanie, I mean. I considered the question carefully. I think I need some distance. Not cutting her off completely, but boundaries. Real ones. That seems healthy, Melissa agreed. And what about Bailey? The question was more complicated. Bailey was still young, still capable of change. And unlike Stephanie, she had shown a flicker of genuine remorse. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me thinks I should try to be a better influence in her life. But another part knows I can't do that if Stephanie undermines me at every turn. One step at a time, Jared advised. Tonight was huge. You don't need to figure everything out right away. As the evening wound down, we decided to relocate to my apartment for coffee and the birthday cake my friends had brought as a backup. Walking through the restaurant in my stained dress wasn't pleasant, but for the first time, I didn't feel diminished by Stephanie's actions, or, by extension, Bailey's. At home, changed into comfortable clothes, surrounded by friends who valued me for exactly who I was, I felt a profound sense of peace. The confrontation had been painful, yes, but also necessary, like lancing a wound that had been festering for years. I keep thinking about something my therapist once told me, I said as we sat around my living room with cake plates balanced on our laps. She said that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop protecting them from the consequences of their behavior. That's profound, Kim said. And true. I think I've been protecting Stephanie from the consequences of her treatment of me for our entire adult lives, I continued. And in doing so, I've been complicit in my own unhappiness. Not anymore, Melissa said firmly. No, I agreed. Not anymore. Later that night, after my friends had gone home, I hung the ruined emerald dress on the back of my bedroom door instead of throwing it away. The contrast between the beautiful green fabric and the ugly red stain struck me as a perfect metaphor for the evening, beauty and pain, celebration and confrontation, endings and beginnings all intertwined. Looking at it, I made a promise to myself. This dress would remind me of the day I finally found my voice. The day I decided my feelings mattered just as much as anyone else's. The day I stopped accepting less than I deserved. And that, I realized, was a birthday gift worth far more than any dress, stained or otherwise. 3 months later, I stood in front of my closet, deliberating over what to wear to an important client meeting. My fingers brushed past the emerald dress, still hanging there with its prominent red stain. I hadn't been able to bring myself to throw it away, and now it served as a daily reminder of my worth, a strange talisman of personal growth. In the 12 weeks since my birthday dinner, my life had changed in ways both subtle and profound. The most immediate change had been the silence from Stephanie. After her cursory text the night of the incident, she'd gone completely quiet. No calls, no messages, no social media comments. It was the longest we'd gone without speaking since I left for college. The silence had been difficult at first, guilt and doubt creeping in during unguarded moments. Had I overreacted? Should I have kept the peace, as I always had before? But with each passing day, I felt my perspective shifting. The absence of Stephanie's subtle criticisms and dismissals had created space for something new, genuine self-confidence. At work, colleagues noticed the change. I spoke up more in meetings, advocated more strongly for my ideas, and even negotiated a budget increase for my department, something I would have shied away from before, afraid of seeming demanding. My boss had commented on my new energy, unaware of the personal breakthrough that had sparked it. I selected a navy blue suit for my meeting, one that projected exactly the professional confidence I now felt. As I finished getting ready, my phone pinged with an email notification. The name in my inbox made me pause, Bailey Thompson. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. The hurt from her cruel words had dulled but wasn't entirely gone. Still, curiosity won out, and I opened the message. Dear Aunt Allison. I've started this email about 20 times over the past few weeks. I don't really know how to say this stuff, but my therapist, yeah, I'm seeing someone now, says I need to take responsibility for my actions. What I did at your birthday dinner was horrible. Not just spilling the drink, but what I said after. There's no excuse for it. I've been thinking a lot about why I did it, and I think I was jealous. Mom always compares me to you when she's mad at me, saying I should be more focused like you, more independent like you. Then she turns around and makes these comments about your life when you're not around. It's confusing. Dad and Mom have been fighting a lot since your birthday. Dad made me get a part-time job to pay for a new dress for you. I've been working at the mall on weekends. It's actually not as bad as I thought it would be, and it feels good to earn my own money. I know an apology probably doesn't fix anything, but I am really sorry. I'd like to talk to you sometime if you're willing. Bailey. I read the email twice, surprised by its maturity and sincerity. This didn't sound like the entitled teenager who had deliberately humiliated me 3 months ago. I thought carefully before composing my reply. Dear Bailey. Thank you for your email. Your apology means a lot to me, and I appreciate the thought and reflection that went into it. Working through difficult emotions takes courage, and I'm proud of you for doing that work with your therapist. I would be happy to meet with you. There's a coffee shop called Marlowe's near your school. Would next Saturday at 2 p.m. work for you? Looking forward to talking. Aunt Allison. Her response came quickly, Saturday works. Thank you for giving me a chance. That Saturday, I arrived at Marlowe's a few minutes early, unsure what to expect. The Bailey who walked through the door seemed different from the sullen teenager I remembered, her posture less defensive, her expression more open. Thanks for meeting me, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I'm glad you reached out, I replied honestly. After ordering a latte for me, hot chocolate for her, an awkward silence fell between us. So, therapy, huh? I finally said. Bailey nodded, tracing the edge of her napkin with her finger. Dad insisted after what happened. I was mad at first, but it's actually been good. Dr. Lowenstein doesn't let me get away with anything. I smiled at that. Sounds like a good match for you. She says I've been picking up unhealthy communication patterns. Bailey glanced up at me. From Mom, mostly. The directness of her statement caught me off guard. That's insightful of her. Mom's not happy about it, Bailey continued. She says therapy is for weak people who can't handle normal life. But Dad's not backing down this time. Something had clearly shifted in the Thompson household dynamics. How are things at home? I asked carefully. Bailey shrugged. Tense. They argue a lot now, mostly about me and how I'm being raised. Dad says Mom's been enabling my bad behavior. Mom says he's undermining her. She paused, looking down at her hot chocolate. They don't know I can hear them. My heart went out to her. For all her previous entitlement, Bailey was still a teenager caught between warring parents. That must be difficult for you. It's weird, she admitted. But also, kind of a relief? Like, Dad's finally seeing some of the stuff that's been happening. He made Mom apologize to me for telling me it was okay to skip homework to go shopping. He never did that before. Over the next hour, Bailey opened up about life at home, how Stephanie had always encouraged her to prioritize appearance and social status over substance, how criticism was constant but praise was rare unless Bailey was excelling at something that reflected well on Stephanie. Mom always told me you were judging us for having money, Bailey said, echoing what she'd revealed at the birthday dinner. But Dr. Lowenstein helped me see that was probably Mom projecting her own insecurities. I nearly choked on my latte hearing such sophisticated insight from a 15-year-old. Therapy vocabulary, Bailey explained with a small smile. I've been learning a lot. Before we parted, Bailey handed me an envelope. Inside was a gift card to the boutique where I'd bought my birthday dress. It's not enough for the exact same dress, she said, looking uncomfortable. But maybe something else there. I've been saving from my job. The gesture touched me deeply. Thank you, Bailey. That's very thoughtful. I really am sorry, she said, suddenly looking younger and more vulnerable. Not just because Dad made me get a job, but because what I did was cruel. And I don't want to be that person. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. The fact that you recognize that shows you won't be. After our coffee meeting, I maintained cautious contact with Bailey, occasional texts, and coffee dates that gradually built a new kind of relationship, one based on authenticity rather than obligation. Stephanie remained distant, though Greg kept me updated on family matters, including his decision to begin couples counseling. She's resistant, he admitted during one phone call. But I've made it clear this is non-negotiable if we want our marriage to work. The stained emerald dress remained hanging in my closet, a reminder of both pain and progress. Sometimes I thought about having it professionally framed, a strange but meaningful art piece representing the moment everything changed. My birthday confrontation had rippled through other areas of my life as well. I'd begun dating again, this time with a clearer sense of my boundaries and worth. Alex, the graphic designer I'd been seeing for the past month, valued my opinions and ambitions in a way that felt refreshingly unfamiliar. You know what I like about you, he'd said during our third date. You know exactly who you are. That's rare. The comment had made me smile, knowing how recently I'd come into that self-knowledge. At work, my newfound assertiveness had led to another promotion, senior creative director with a team of 5 reporting to me. The woman who had once hesitated to correct coffee orders was now confidently leading client presentations and mentoring junior staff. Life wasn't perfect. There were still moments of doubt, still days when I wondered if reconciliation with Stephanie was possible. But I no longer measured my worth through her eyes. That, perhaps, was the greatest change of all. On a chilly autumn evening, exactly 3 months after my birthday dinner, I received a text from Stephanie. Can we talk? In person. Simple, direct, and notably lacking her usual deflections. After a moment's reflection, I responded. Yes. But this time, I get to choose the restaurant. As I set my phone down, I glanced at the emerald dress still hanging on my closet door. The stain had faded slightly with time, much like the hurt it represented. I didn't know what would come from meeting Stephanie, whether healing was possible or even desirable. But I knew this, I would walk into that conversation as my full, undiminished self. The journey from that birthday dinner to today hadn't been easy. It had required facing uncomfortable truths, setting painful boundaries, and rewriting decades-old patterns. But standing in my apartment, looking at the physical reminder of that turning point, I felt nothing but gratitude. Sometimes, the most powerful gift we can give ourselves is the courage to say, enough. To draw a line between what we've tolerated and what we deserve. To recognize that allowing others to diminish us doesn't make us accommodating, it makes us complicit in our own unhappiness. My birthday may have been ruined, but it had also been transformative. The stained dress had become a badge of honor rather than a mark of humiliation. And as I prepared to face whatever came next with Stephanie, I knew that regardless of the outcome, I would never again make myself smaller to make someone else comfortable with their own insecurities. That knowledge, more than any designer dress or career achievement, was the true gift I'd given myself. And it fit perfectly. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who diminished you? Did it change your relationship for better or worse? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear that they deserve respect. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful transformations begin with moments that seem to break us.